It is Friday, February 25th. Let's talk PlayStation. Hello everyone, welcome back. It's of course another very special day because Elden Ring is now out and this game has reviewed exceptionally well. And that's what's so weird about it is that it did it right next to Horizon again because the game, Zero Dawn in 2017 came out right before Breath of the Wild, and now it's found itself in a similar situation because it really is not that often whatsoever that a game scores 95, 6, 7 in that range. And so between Metacritic and OpenCritic, this game is one of the highest ones we've ever seen now, which is incredible. So if you're playing it today, hope you enjoy it. Have a great time. Also next week is Gran Turismo 7. So there's really no shortage of fantastic titles to play. It's crazy. But with all that, let's actually start off, as always, with our PS Plus reminder. The February titles, make sure you grab them, get that done, out of the way. March 1st, it's going to change over to Ghost Runner on PS5, and then as a bonus title, or at least what Sony is considering a bonus title, is Ghost of Tsushima Legends on PS4 and PS5, then also Ark Survival Evolved on PS4, and then Team Sonic Racing PS4 as well. So this is actually a really good month. A little heavy on the multiplayer side, but still, I mean, if you've never tried Ghost of Tsushima before, that's a great way to get in, play it, see how it feels. Ghost Runner, really cool. Ark Survival, you could easily spend a lot of time with that. So, solid month for PS Plus. Now, this is a good segue to our next story, which is about PS Now. We don't have the full lineup for March just yet, but we do know one title that's going to be in there, which is it's Shadow Warrior 3, which is a brand new title, and it's launching day and date on PS Now, which has caused a bit of conversation surrounding the fact that we're seeing a game launch day and date on PS Now. We haven't seen that before. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. So, at least as far as I can remember, the only one title we saw was Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, which, I mean, yeah, that's like an old PS3 game that got remastered, but as a brand new recent release, that launched day and date on PS Now, and also PS Plus as well, oddly enough. So that was actually our first example, and also PS Plus has had a handful of games over the years that have launched day and date on that service, so it doesn't happen often, but it does happen occasionally. So it's always nice to see when Sony does get a brand new title or a very recent game available on Plus or Now. Doesn't matter really. And well, that's another good segue to our next story, which is about that rumored PlayStation Plus Spartacus revamp, the service revamp that we like to call it. It's not going to matter much about PS Now, PS Plus, because it's all going to get wrapped into what is principally probably going to be called PlayStation Plus to some degree. And this news story is about a rumor discussed by GamesBeat reporter Jeff Grubb, where he outlines what he's heard about the service. And it's largely the same information of what we heard from Jason Schreier when he reported about this on Bloomberg. So there's not too much new information here, but we'll still cover some of the extra tidbits that we did here. So Jeff Grubb does report that the tiers would be as follows, and he actually includes prices and names. The base tier would be PS Plus Essential, that's $10 a month. And that would basically just be PS Plus as we know it today. PS Plus Extra would be $13 a month. This would include all the download titles on PS Now, so at a minimum that means we're looking at a PS4 catalog of around 300-something games. And then PS Plus Premium, this would be $16 a month. This would include everything mentioned thus far, but on top of that, it will have streaming, classic games, and game trials. And the game trials might function similar to what we know currently, where you start a full game trial and you can play the full game right away, but you only get like 4 or 5 hours, depends on the title, but we've had a few of those so far, and Jeff does mention he doesn't know what kind of classic games would be included, and also the pricing and the names could change. Of course, he's also going to make sure that that's out there as well, but the service is apparently entering a testing phase where, assuming all goes according to plan, we could get the announcement in March. And just to also quickly outline, this is more than likely not going to be a price increase, so I'm seeing a few people curious about this when they look at the base tier being $10 a month. Just to reiterate, I mean, right now, if you subscribe to PS Plus or PS Now on a month-by-month basis and you don't pay for the full year up front, then those services are $10 a month. So at a minimum, they're probably going to do the same thing here, where all current subscribers, if you don't want to change anything, if you want to let it lapse or resubscribe or whatever, it should be the same price across the board for what is, again, principally going to be PS Plus as we know it today. The extra tiers, I don't know. I would like to see an upfront cost that you can buy per year, and that's how you can get the per month average down, and that would be nice, because $16 a month for that top tier could certainly get expensive, especially because, as I've mentioned a few times now at this point, I don't like calling this a Game Pass competitor because it's just not quite. It's not going to be that, right? The initial report said it prior to Jason Schreier's Bloomberg report. The way I always pictured Sony consolidating services and trying to make some sort of value proposition on a subscription model for the PlayStation customer that works for Sony's bottom line, it just is not going to include day and date first-party titles. It was probably never going to. They've been very forward about that. So because they're not doing that and phrasing it as a Game Pass competitor from all these different sites and stuff, it's just, no matter what Sony puts out, it's not going to be seen as... It's probably not going to be seen as very good, right? You're going to see a lot of people complain once this has a formal announcement and reveal, oh, it's not as good as Game Pass and this, that, and the other. And I think that's kind of expected. But at a minimum, we can look at, again, how I phrased it at least. They could make a good value proposition if there is something genuinely interesting there when it comes to the amount of classic games that are available. I would like to see a lot of titles. Let's get at least 100 so PS1 titles on there. Let's get the 50-something PS2 games in the current PS2 program on PS4 and PS5. Let's get those titles on there, which I think most of them are available through PlayStation Now, so those should be retroactively added into the minimum or not the middle tier and the top tier. The streaming, probably still going to be PS3 titles, but I'm still curious to find out if we'll get PS5 streaming and native PS5 titles. Those should finally start getting added. And then there's also the possibility that Sony probably now has a proper solution to offer the streaming capabilities in all the territories where PS Now was never available to begin with. And that's why it's kind of a fresh start to drop the PS Now branding and just do 3 tiers. So it sounds like we should be finding out very soon what this new service is going to be, and the way I see them doing it is probably a PlayStation blog post, because there is still also a conversation of if we're getting a new event, a new live stream, a new state of play. I still expect that this would probably be something reserved to a PS blog write-up, but either way, we should be finding out very soon. Now, moving on to our next story, it looks like the auto uploads feature for screenshots and videos on PS5 to the PlayStation mobile app is now available, where that was initially in a testing phase in Japan and Canada, and then for, an hour or two by accident, it went live in North America like a few weeks ago, but now it should be everywhere. And so if you want to turn this on, head to the Media Gallery app on PS5. You should be prompted right away to turn this on. If not, you can go to your settings, and under Capture and Broadcast, you can try and turn it on from there, and that's where brand new manual screenshots or videos under 3 minutes long will be auto-uploaded, and you can access them from the PlayStation mobile app, and that way you can easily share them, download them, do whatever. A lot easier to do that than to, say, manually insert a USB drive in a PS5 and then, move them that way, which is kind of a pain. So, yeah, this is a lot easier, and it should be available everywhere now. Next up, let's talk about Horizon Forbidden West, because the game is now finally out, and with that comes millions of people finally playing it, and for an open world game, we're going to see some, bugs, crashes, issues being reported. We're not sure how widespread it really is, but certainly one issue that's getting a lot of attention right now is the shimmering issue, and this depends on how you interpret it, but there's 2 different ways this could be, or what it looks like. The main one being that the image brightness goes down when the camera is moving, or possibly up, but there's that. There's also plants and vegetation flickering in the distance, producing a jarring visual effect. There's also a decent amount of pop-in. There's some clipping. There's obviously a handful of things going on right now, and the good news is that Guerrilla Games, at least, has been very diligent in speaking directly with the community and even requesting feedback on issues that people are running into, no matter how obscure and unique it is to your particular situation, but they want to make sure that they get a lot of this stuff sorted out. So they already pushed out patch 1.0, 1.05, and this one fixes a lot of issues with the main quests, side quests, world activities, also general fixes. So they're already getting a lot of stuff done in such a short amount of time, but they are definitely aware of the shimmering issue, and also a few other things as well that at least they're telling people, yes, we know about it, and we are working on a fix. So that is good to see. I've gotten this question a few times already, where it's like, how widespread are these problems? Is the game in a playable state? Which, yes, it is. You can play it from start to finish, no problem. A lot of people are, but it really depends on your tolerance for the shimmering issue. Some people are going through the entire game, and they don't even really notice it. other people do, and if it bothers you, then I would say, unfortunately, you'll have to wait for a patch. But it does bring up an interesting topic of how do these big games come out, not just Horizon, but anything, and then a lot of problems get reported, issues, crashes, right? How does a game come out after it's gone through the developer, QA, journalists, and none of these problems get reported? But that's the weird little angle of this, is that there's so many variables at play before a game comes out where those checks and balances, there is a lot of failure points, right? Whether it's journalists playing a build that has an earlier patch or no patch, sometimes patches introduce new problems that journalists didn't run into. There's also the fact that QA might be reporting problems that at a priority level it doesn't get fixed before the game comes out. And then sometimes publishers will push a game to come out and they'll just worry about patching it later, and that's a reality of it too. But probably the big one is that a game doesn't see too many eyes before it comes out. So for an open world game like Horizon, where open worlds tend to be prone to a lot of issues just due to their size and how many ways you can break them or discover new little issues, we're talking about only a handful of people ever seeing the game before it comes out, right? Developers, QA, journalists, you might see, a couple hundred people play and see the game and bug test it before it reaches 1 million people. At that point, you're going to see a lot of things come out because a lot of people are now finally playing the game. And whether it's a modern open world game or something that's made 20 years ago, no game is perfect. You can ask any developer or even a speedrunner. They'll tell you there's plenty of ways to break a game. So the shimmering issue is interesting that it got through for Guerrilla. That would be one where I would think they would have caught that, but well, either way, we should hopefully get it solved within a few weeks or so, depending on how quickly they can get that patch out. Now, one really cool thing that we just found out, though, was the games director recently speaking with a Dutch publication, explaining how for Guerrilla Games they were actually able to avoid working overtime and crunching because of that recent delay that we saw late last year. He was actually quoted saying, "Forbidden West might have come out at the end of last year, but then we might have had to work overtime. People also need to be able to relax and take vacations, for example, to be with family and friends. That also played into the decision to only release the game now." So that's great to see. We have so many examples of publishers really pushing for a deadline, delaying, and then at a certain point, one too many delays. It's a matter of all that pressure being applied to the team. Work, get it out. Not only does that often lead to a lesser product, but more importantly, it seriously damages the livelihood and the welfare of those developers where, it's a well-documented problem in the games business. It's terrible, and Sony doesn't really have their hands clean of this where, they've got baggage, they've got monsters in the closet like any other big company, but we want more examples like this to come out where the welfare and the well-being of these people are put ahead of the product. And so, yeah, it got delayed a few months, but big deal. We want more of this to happen, and it's great to see that for Forbidden West. That delay directly meant that they had the space necessary to get the game out. And I would hope that they're not really in a tough spot with trying to push out these patches and working overtime in that scenario. And it's important to actually outline that the games director said, some people like to work that much, right? And that's why crunch has always been such a complicated question of, or a complicated conversation of, some developers like chasing that corporate ladder and working like crazy and chasing promotions. And again, it's a whole thing, but you want a leader to say, hey, take a break. We can't keep doing this. Let's hopefully see more examples of it. Moving on to our next story. If you remember, we talked recently about the upcoming horror game Martha is Dead on PS4, PS5, Xbox, PC, and for the PlayStation version of this game, it would have some sort of, censored content or cut content. It would be modified in some way. We just didn't know what, although we did have an idea, and that's why we talked about it in a separate video. And, that's why the physical release for PS4 and PS5 has been delayed, but the game did launch on PSN on time, and, the game is now available, so we do know what was actually changed. And as expected, it was the interactivity of the face cutting scene and also the one where players cut open a womb. The interactivity of those scenes has been removed. Also, references to masturbation has been removed as well, which it's not that it was directly shown, but the context of it was considered inappropriate. And there's more detailed content warnings at the start of the game compared to other platforms. And there's also an expanded mode to censor additional content if players wish that will remove those scenes entirely, and also other ones depicting miscarriage and suicide. Now, interestingly, a spokesperson for the ESRB explained to IGN that situations like this are considered uncommon and unusual to have the platform holder or, let's say, a retailer to step in and make their own decisions based on content. And that's sort of what we got into on that video, 2 weeks ago, where it was, it's Sony's platform. They can make these decisions and do what they want, obviously. It's their decision at the end of the day. Although I find this one to be obviously unusual, right? Because yes, it's very disturbing, gory content, but there's a lot of other, gory, crazy things and plenty of other games. But context is everything. What might be considered just overt violence in other games isn't quite the same as the more sadistic and calculated nature of these scenes in this game. That's the difference. That's why it's a gray area where it's a case-by-case basis. That's why this is not the first game. It won't be the last, and that's why I'm also curious to find out what the next game might be and what the problem would be for that game in particular, right? And bear in mind, we don't have hundreds of games where Sony's, going crazy, censoring everything. It's only a few titles, and Martha is Dead, we don't really get games like that too often. So that's why this isn't a massive issue or problem, but if this is a topic that means a lot to you, some people have principles, and I don't blame you. If it means a lot to you, then vote with your wallet and make your own decisions. But this one does seem a bit unusual and strange, like the SRB said. This one, yeah, it's obviously gory and uncomfortable and weird, but it's just one where I don't think this was necessary. But that's why I want to see what the next game might be and see how they enforce this policy of theirs, and what really pushes the envelope, what's too much for Sony, and they might be playing it a little bit too safe in terms of liability, but again, we'll have to wait and see on more examples. Moving on to PlayStation VR2, because Sony finally showcased what the headset actually looks like, which I thought for sure they were going to save this for some sort of 20-30 minute live stream with a fancy 30-second animation showing the headset, and then we get game announcements, developers, all that good stuff, which I assume we're still getting at some point. But at least in terms of the design of the headset, which right before GDC, like I was expecting, but for the design, they showcased that on the PS blog, and so we can actually talk about the design itself and what we learned. And one thing you might notice immediately is that it does look very similar to the first headset. Like as a profile side by side, they're very similar. And that's because in terms of the ergonomics, the design is the same from the first headset, where based on feedback, with the weight distribution and comfortability, which the first headset is very comfortable. That's why they stuck with that design for the most part, and that includes the adjustable dial in the back. It's still there to tighten or loosen the strap, and there is a new dial up front, and that's the one that you can use to change the lens distance between your eyes, so that's nice to have. And near that new dial, you can also see that there's new small ventilation openings that flank both sides of the headset, and that should help reduce fogging. And overall, the headset has a slight weight reduction compared to the first one, so should be a bit smaller, a bit lighter. That's nice to see. And there's also the PlayStation buttons, the Easter egg on all the PS5 accessories, the controller, the console's inner shells. That's also on the inner straps of this headset, so that's also cool. And, well, we can see that for the headset design and now the PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers, they're properly color matching the PS5 product lineup, because that was one little curiosity we had when the controllers were first revealed. They were all black, and every accessory so far color matches PS5 with that white black two-tone finish, and now that's what these controllers have as well. So these are probably going to be more reflective of the final product, and I think it looks good. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with, like, say, the PSVR aim controller, where it you don't look at it when you're using it. It's basically just it looks like you're playing with a bunch of PVC pipes put together, but it doesn't have to look fancy. Looks like a VR headset. If you leave it out, people will know what it is, and if you hide it away, it should be a lot easier now because of the one cord. So yeah, it looks good, and I'm excited. I can't wait when we get the inevitable. What I still think is happening is a live stream showcasing the content roadmap, release date, pricing. I would actually be pretty disappointed if we never get a proper showcase of this headset. and it's just a bunch of PlayStation blog posts like, here's another game, here's a game, here's release date, here's pricing. But besides all that, I'm just excited for sure. I love my PSVR. I love anytime I play virtual reality games on other headsets. It's such a great experience, and I'm ready for more accessibility with the one cord use. Not having move controllers anymore and having much more reliable tracking on PlayStation hardware. This is going to be such a big jump. I'm so excited. And so we should be seeing more very soon, because I thought for sure they got to show this thing before GDC. Okay, not the live stream, but we did finally see the headset, so it's getting closer, and I cannot wait. All right, let's talk about the Uncharted movie, because it looks like it's doing quite well. So much so that it looks like it's exceeding Sony's expectations, and, well, as reported by Deadline, the Sony Pictures boss Tom Rothman said in an internal memo, and I quote here, "With over $100 million in box office worldwide in just one weekend, and a 90% positive audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, Uncharted is a new hit movie franchise for the company." Now, keyword franchise, it's not a dead giveaway, but it sort of implies that the company is looking at this film seriously to possibly turn it into a franchise where there's multiple sequels. Or at least one sequel, but right now the global total for Uncharted is at $139 million, so it's made back the production budget, and it seems to be well on track for being a profitable movie. Now, I did finally get to go see it myself. I went this past Tuesday, so not quite Saturday, but I did finally see it, and my quick little review or my take on it, which, keep in mind, I'm not really a huge movie TV watcher. I'm way more comfortable talking about games and the games business versus movies, but just to put it out there that maybe I have a lower tolerance for what's good or bad. I don't know. It's just to let you know, for me, I didn't hate it. I honestly liked it. I didn't love it, but the benchmark I've seen a lot of people use is, would you watch it again? And in the context of, if a friend approached me and said, hey, I haven't seen it just yet, do you want to watch it with me? I would. But the thing is, the detachment is totally there of Nathan Drake and Sully being played by Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, the detachment is totally there, right? I will say that Tom feels more like Drake than Mark Wahlberg feels like Sully, which I think is kind of not really surprising. And that's even more strange because, honestly, the set pieces were there, the action's there, the entire story feels straight out of Uncharted. It really does. It feels perfectly matched with the pacing and their progress and how they're traveling, and all that worked perfectly. I was making mental notes of all that. This totally would be what Uncharted is. And even the back and forth between Nate and Sully, the quips are there. They got genuine laughs out of me. But it's just there's the detachment. They didn't feel like Nate and Sully. So yes, if you were to cast, it doesn't even have to be Nathan Fillion, right? If you cast somebody with a similar build, it's an adult Drake, somebody that's older to play Sully and has more of a raspier voice. It doesn't have to be a complete match, but somebody that can at least feel like Sully and what we know from the games. It probably would have delivered. It would have delivered better. But the thing is, this is why Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg were attached, because I don't know how big of a role they play here, but I would imagine just due to how hot Tom Holland is right now, and even Mark Wahlberg, he's doing a lot of stuff recently. These are actors that are well known, and they put butts in seats. So one could make a serious argument that you may not have liked the fact that it's Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, but I would gather that they did a large part of really carrying the. I don't want to say carry the film, but for how well it's doing right now, I think that's probably a big part of it. But somebody that's a bit more informed could probably provide some context on just how much it means for a big name actor to be in a movie versus somebody that's maybe lesser known. I don't know, but I'm sure that probably played a pretty big role for Uncharted. With that said, though, it looks like this is a successful launch of the first major movie out of PlayStation Productions. So we're probably going to see another one, and there is a scene in there, or an end scene that sets up another movie, so we're probably going to get more Uncharted, and I think this does bode well for what we're going to see out of PlayStation Productions. The budget and the resources are there, they're taking it seriously, so even if this is kind of like a solid 6 or 7 out of 10, which to me is not bad, obviously, even if it's that, I think this it makes me cautiously optimistic for what's to come, and I think that was probably the best thing we could have said about this. For our next news story, God of War Ragnarok, this is one title where right now we're probably going to have a lot of eyes start shifting to this game in particular, and a lot of people are wondering still, is the game going to launch on time? Will it launch this year? Will it be delayed? Recently on the subreddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors, somebody posed this very question, will the game get delayed to 2023? And Bloomberg's Jason Schreier actually chimed in as a verified account and said, nope. Now, that's not to say that Jason saying this is 100% confirmation. He could just be sharing speculation on his part, but more likely he has some insight into the progress of this title, and it seems like it's on track to launch this year. And, well, I've said this much before, where it's like when we had that PlayStation Showcase, which was the second show for PS5 prior to that console coming out, which that was back in 2020, and they had the tenacity to actually throw a 2021 release window on that game. If they were willing to do that back then and they somehow thought that game was going to launch that year, then probably, okay, the following year is when the game will come out. So it seems like it would have to be in rough shape, or something bad would really have to happen for it to be, knocked out of this year. I think, worst case scenario, the game is due for around fall, which is the ongoing rumor, and maybe has a delay like Horizon, where it's like, 2-3 months, which could still put it at the very end of this year. But I would say the game's probably going to come out in time, and that is the title where after Gran Turismo 7, Ghostwire Tokyo, and mind you, we should be getting a new live stream or a state of play sometime soon, which will have those titles showing us the back half of this year. After these games come out, though, a lot of eyes are going to be pointing at God of War, and hopefully it will launch on time. Now, with all that said, it is time for Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway, where one of you can win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter, and this week we're doing something a bit different. So recently, Isaiah Gamer on Twitter reached out and said, hey, I bought the Regala edition of Horizon, and I wanted a physical copy. They went out and got it, and so they're giving away the Regala Edition code, which is a dual entitlement for PS4 and PS5. So one code, you get both versions, and all you need is a US PSN account to redeem this. So if you'd like to win, enter below. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because Isaiah is trying to help give you Horizon Forbidden West on PS4 or PS5. Those are all the stories that I wanted to talk about with you all from this past week, and unfortunately didn't have enough time to make a Tuesday video, and also that's probably going to be the case for this coming Tuesday because I'm going to be in New York City for the weekend, so not really much time to get anything together there. But LTPS, no changes. I'll see you next Friday, and then probably the next Tuesday is when I'll have something ready. So just a slight little scheduling change, but we should be back on track by that Tuesday, which would be March whatever. But that's it. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.